I'm Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North. The Duluth City Council approved formation of an African Heritage Commission this week. We'll talk with City Councilor Janet Kennedy about the new body. The St. Louis County Board had a lengthy meeting this week with much of the time spent talking about refugee resettlement. We'll hear from the County Board's chair and vice chair about the measure, which has stirred passion on both sides. It's all coming up next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Dennis is off this week as we alternate hosting the program during the pandemic. This week's show was recorded on Thursday afternoon. The timing may have been coincidental, but the approval of an African Heritage Commission by the Duluth City Council came at a time when emotions are running high. Events in Minneapolis this week put into sharp focus the racial issues our country continues to struggle with. Here to talk about the new commission is Janet Kennedy, Duluth's first African American City Councilor. And welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
And congratulations on the establishment of the commission. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about what it is and what it's designed to do.
So first I want to just say I'll send my condolences to the Floyd family and what happened in Minneapolis. And I just want folks to know that this is an important time that we come together as a community. And I also, so as far as the African Heritage, the Duluth African Heritage Commission, I'm excited to have partners and to have partnered with President Anderson and Vice President Vanette as my co-sponsors in this. Right now, the City Council, we're a unique council in that we have a lot of firsts as far as our diversity, and I want to thank my fellow councilors for voting unanimously for the Duluth African Heritage Commission. So one thing I want to do is I want to read the first few sentences of the commission. It's been a lot of work and I haven't had time to digest what the purpose is. And so the first few sentences for me really hit the mark as far as what it is. Mm-hmm. The purpose of this commission is to ensure that the views of the African heritage community are incorporated in the decision-making, future planning, and stewardship of the city of Duluth. The commission will endeavor to act as a guide in the development of public policy, planning, and processes and services so that they actually adequately support and represent the African heritage community. The community will also endeavor to helping understanding and acceptance of African heritage community and culture, and to increase the involvement of the African heritage community in all aspects of our city government. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important to stress that, and it's even more important than just expressing my own words and my unique experiences to what this commission will be doing.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that the views and the voice of the African heritage community has been left out of decisions in the past, or really hasn't been at the table in Duluth?
I would say there's a both. You know, there's some historic racism that has happened over that, and historically policies have left us out of that conversation. It's really only been about 50 years that we even really had the ability to be engaged in that, and so today the city of Duluth and my fellow councilors in our community has stepped up and said that we're going to begin to value the voices of African heritage people. And more importantly, this commission will help to make those voices and people to feel relevant.
Mm-hmm. Are there specific disparities that you see in terms of education or employment or healthcare that you really think need to be addressed?
All of the above that you mentioned. If you look at the social determinants of health, the social, economic, environmental, impacts of our life expectancies, and that it's been identified even during COVID that African heritage, Black, Indigenous, and people of color are facing disparities. Overall, even before COVID, there's an 11-year difference in life expectancy in Duluth, depending on where you live, your zip code, but also if you happen to be a person of color, you will live less.
Mm-hmm. And you're very active in that community health arena, even organizing some mask drives during COVID. Was there a good response to that?
Yes, we've had a great response, and I hope people are staying abreast to that. You can always check out the NAACP website, but we've done around 7 mass distributions, which have also included some hand sanitizers, some essential necessities, some food. And so we've had an overwhelming need in our community. And forming this commission and understanding those needs, especially during a COVID time, this commission will help the city to be more proactive in how we're addressing the people that have the most need during a COVID pandemic, and even without that.
Now, you grew up in Duluth.
Yes.
What was that experience like in terms of acceptance and opportunity? Do you feel that there was a lot of racism that you faced along the way?
There's a lot of barriers. There's a lot of barriers being a woman, right? And being a woman of color, there's even more barriers. So I tell a story, and somebody, Tara, shared a story at our council meeting about her daughter just the other night and what she faces as a young Black person living in Duluth, and that those are the things I faced 50 years ago, right, when I came here and as I grew up. And so those barriers are there. This commission will help to decrease some of those barriers. It'll give an avenue for young people of color to be able to see themselves and see people that look like them in a leadership role so they can have something to aspire for.
Mm-hmm. And the importance of just having diverse voices in public policy and planning. Speak to that a little bit.
Well, we know that the more voices that we have at the table, the better our policy decisions. The city did a lot of that work with the Imagine Duluth 2035, and with the health and all policies, we identified that even still, when we say we want more voices at the table, it has to be deliberate and it has to be specific. And so this commission will be that. Those voices will be right there. And so we do need to be sure all voices are at the table. When we have all perspectives, we don't leave out other people's stories. We make better policies. Mm-hmm.
Will there be diversity of political thought on the commission? Recently, there's been quite a bit of national discussion because Vice President Joe Biden said if someone of African heritage doesn't support him over the current president, they ain't Black.
I really can't speak to what's going on nationally. I really want to focus on what's going locally for our community. I would say anytime we form a commission, there are some political aspects of that. And so the people that will be serving on this, that will be of African heritage, will need to consider things that are going on at the state level and at the federal level. But really, we need to focus on what we can change here. And so it's going to be really important. Joe Biden has his work cut out for him. Our current president also has his work cut out for him. We need to really focus on locally what we can do because we can't always control that.
Mm-hmm. How will the members of the commission be selected?
The mayor will be a part of that. The mayor and I have discussed that I can help with that. But with most commissions that are chartered, the mayor plays a role in that. But she does ask for counselors to help out if she has questions. We also have a personnel committee on the city council, and currently I am the committee chair of that. So.
And will there be terms, or will people just be appointed for an indefinite amount of time?
There are terms like any other commission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's been, in recent years, an Indigenous Peoples Commission similar to this. have you noticed that that has improved things for Indigenous peoples?
I would say yes. If you talk to people, community members, and just doing a lot of work within the nonprofit and looking at health and wellness, I've seen an increase in capacity for the Indigenous community. A lot of that work is the work that they've done, and so I believe it will help. It'll take time though.
Mm-hmm. We alluded in the opening, and you mentioned off the top that there are real challenges going on in Minneapolis right now following the tragic death of a man in police custody. The city has exploded into riots and looting as well as peaceful protests. What are your thoughts on that? Are the tensions always there just under the surface?
I can only speak to what I have seen and heard. I will say right now it's a can be a very contentious time, but I believe our community locally is a community based on mutual support and mutual understanding of how people are feeling when something like this happens. One of the things I want to say is that our community will never survive as a whole if we're not all walking on even ground. And so when something happens like this, we need to, as Duluth, we need to rally together. I know that the mayor has given some support and has reached out to the NAACP. I will say that this is not my story to tell as an African heritage woman. I really, truly want to leave that space open for an African heritage man to be able to talk about how he feels. It impacts me, and I feel very grieved about what happened, but I also want to be able to be that person that can continue to move us forward.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that having this commission in place, helping to guide policy and decisions, is a good step in that direction?
It is a good step in the right direction. It's a bright spot in what has been going on between COVID and what happened in Minneapolis. I am proud to be able to have brought this forward and have the co-sponsors and a unanimous support of the council right now. And I'm also proud of our community and our allies for standing up for what is right as we make a difference here in Duluth.
Mm-hmm. And very quickly, the City Council approved funding for reconstruction of the Lake Walk. Prudent given the financial picture and everything that's going on with COVID-19?
Yeah, it's almost it's almost like I couldn't not support it. It's the last leg of what we're doing. It's almost like not completing, your work that you did. And so I would say as we move forward, we need to, and if it happens again, right, that's another conversation, but it's work that's not done. And so we need to buckle down and pay for it now, and because it can actually help support us bounce back from COVID in the long run.
All right. Councilor Janet Kennedy, thank you so much for coming in, and good luck as you go forward with the new commission.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
The St. Louis County Board heard hours of testimony Tuesday on the issue of refugee resettlement. The board held a virtual meeting with comments from the public via phone and some board members attending through a video meeting service. Board Vice Chair Beth Olson of Duluth talked about why she thought the board should vote in favor of resettlement.
Since the vote to table this resolution, a court has stepped in, has suspended this executive order, questioning its constitutionality. Some will say that this court suspension has made this vote merely symbolic, and the county board should drop it for the time being. I disagree. We do not yet know the outcome in the court's future appeals. We do not know what future executive orders will bring. This certainly isn't over. This vote will matter in the future because there is a good chance this could come back to the county board. I have been on record as stating that I won't initiate resolutions of support, otherwise known as symbolic resolutions, and I have not done so. This resolution started from a direct request of the federal government. I brought it forward, and I believe now that we have to finish what we started. We took our first of 2 votes to support this moving from committee of the whole to the regular agenda. We have had 5 months of in-person testimony, including at meetings on the range, emails, phone calls, and conversations with our constituents. They have been making their voices heard, and they want us to take a vote. They want to know where we stand individually and collectively on this board. We need to vote today because this has become a referendum on what kind of county we are, a resolution that speaks to our values. Are we a county that is open to outsiders and welcoming and acknowledging of the contributions they bring? Or are we a county that is scared by differences among people and treats people hatefully?
In the end, the board voted by a 4-3 margin to table the measure once again and wait to see how a federal court rules on the matter. Well, joining us now via Zoom with more on this week's discussion is Mike Jugovich, the St. Louis County Board Chair from Hibbing. And welcome. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.
Maybe you can start by just explaining in some pretty simple terms exactly what the board was considering in terms of refugee resettlement, because there seems to be a little confusion about it.
There's a great deal of confusion. I don't think everyone fully understands that the president put forth an order to allow counties to make the decision whether refugees are able to come or not. And I think it was mid-January, a federal judge from Delaware intervened and said that that's not the case. It should not be this way. So actually, the order was null and void from that point on.
Mm-hmm. When you're talking about refugees, who specifically would be included in this?
Fleeing your country for any reason that you may be in danger, whether it be religious persecution, political, there's all kinds of different things that go into it. But the refugees, the misconception is that they are not vetted and they are not legal, and that is completely false.
Mm-hmm. Were you surprised at all by the passionate response to this with protests and so many citizens wanting to testify and share their thoughts?
Not surprised at all. I think it's critical that we get the public's input, whether it's for or against. It's good to hear from them. We need to hear from them. It helps us with our decision-making process, and they need to know that we are there listening to what they have to say.
Mm-hmm. And what were some of the things that citizens were really saying in terms of their concerns or what they wanted the board to consider?
We had a great deal of people, 90 plus people called or through WebEx made contact with us, and there was a number of emails before that. So I mean, it's literally been in the hundreds since January. But I think that the message was very clear. You could tell which side of the issue the people were on, and they made it clear that this is how they felt, this is why they felt this way. And they really felt that we should move forward with whatever direction they were thinking was the right one. So we've had it from both sides. What disappointed me was the lack of information that really got out to the public.
Mm-hmm. Are any of the concerns that people have expressed in terms of job availability, giving people from other countries their jobs or not having enough government resources available in light of the COVID situation? Are those valid concerns at this point?
All things that came up, and I understand people get excited about that, but the reality of the situation is we have a problem right now with COVID, and it has played a part in this, which kind of made people even more on edge about others coming in and possibly taking work away. So yes, we've heard it. As far as it making a difference, I don't know how that plays because we've had one refugee since 2011. I don't think that the numbers support the fear right now, but I understand people fear what they have a lack of information or limited information on.
Mm-hmm. Do you think in general it's a good idea for the county to have a say in whether refugees are resettled in the region?
I don't. To be honest with you, if the president felt that he did not want refugees, he probably should have cut it off right there. I think it's very divisive. I think you saw it on the board. I think Commissioner Musoff did an outstanding job of making it clear that the wedge has been placed not only in our communities, but it was on our board, and it was clear.
What happens now that the resolution has been sent back to the administration? Do you expect that at some point in time it's going to be brought up again?
It could be. We'll have to see what happens with the court case. If the court case, if President Trump wins an appeal, that very likely will come back to us at some point. We don't know what happens, but I just personally didn't like the idea of taking a symbolic vote, knowing full well that either way we voted, we had no say whatsoever in refugees coming to St. Louis County, nor did any other county for that matter.
It seemed like this was a good opportunity for people to connect with the county board remotely via technology. Is that something that the board might consider even after the COVID pandemic is no longer an issue, just because it gives more people an opportunity to be connected?
Without a doubt, I think the world has changed to some degree. From now on, I think you'll see more of the Zoom, the WebEx, and people calling in. We have the technology. That was the main reason we moved that meeting from Buell to our new building in Virginia, because technologically it was much superior to the senior center in Buell. Not that the senior center wasn't a great place to have the meeting, and we will get back there for another, but that new building in Virginia allowed those people to connect with us where we might not have been able to get all of those people on board through the building in Buell.
And rural broadband has been a priority for the county board for a while now. Do you think that this could actually move things forward a little bit?
I think so. I mean, with all the opportunities we've seen with people making connections with WebEx and Zoom, things like that, I believe the future is going to be a hard push for some of these technologies, because we need it for kids in school. We need it for home-based workers. We need it for people that want to start a business out of the home. So it gives opportunities that might not have been there. So I think we need to really, really push that at the state and federal levels to make sure we get the help we need, because there are a lot of people missing out, and it keeps people from actually moving here, because it's one of those things where you ask if you have the internet, because so many people are used to it coming from other places. And if you don't have the infrastructure, you're at a disadvantage.
Now you're sitting there in your office, but the COVID-19 pandemic has really changed the way the county is operating. How are you looking at transitioning out of the shutdown, and when will that occur?
Well, slowly we'll get some information from the governor soon, but slowly we'll start to bring back things and hopefully get things back to normal sooner than later. I know everybody wants to get back to work. They want to be able to go to their favorite watering holes, restaurants, and we want that too. We want to make sure everyone is able to do those things, but at the same time, we want to make sure it's safe to do that. So it'll be an ongoing process.
What about the county's budget? Has that been impacted?
Absolutely. We're estimating as of right now that St. Louis County will probably take a $15 to $20 million hit just from COVID. So it's really been challenging. Well, we've been working hard, giving the couple of extra months to get property taxes paid. We're doing what we can. We're working on different things with bars and restaurants to help them get set up for outdoor dining, things like that. The liquor committee has been working really hard, sending things to the board for rebates for liquor licenses if you haven't been able to sell during this COVID, because it was of no fault of their own. So we're looking at different things we can do. We can't do everything, but everything we do helps in the long run. So the entire board works very hard at trying to help out the residents.
A while back, you issued a statement maybe discouraging people from outside of the region from visiting. Is that going to extend into the summer? What are your thoughts? Is the region still closed?
You know, as restrictions lift, we want to see people back. We do. And I know that businesses are hurting, and we need to do what we can to help those businesses. I'm not sure what the right answer is. I know in St. Louis County, northern St. Louis County especially, we haven't had as many cases. And I think partially that was due to a lack of testing. But in the end, I want to see everything open up. I think we need to get some of these businesses back on track, because we're going to see a large number of small business not recover from this. And we want to do everything we can to avoid that.
All right. Well, Mike Jugovich, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for what you and the rest of the county commissioners are doing to keep things rolling in the region during these difficult times.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you. It was a very busy week for news in our region. The Duluth News-Tribune announced starting in July it will drop its 7-day-a-week print edition and move most of its news online. The newspaper will now mail a printed paper to subscribers just twice a week on Wednesdays and Saturdays. And the death of George Floyd during a police stop in Minneapolis has sparked protests and outrage around the state, including here in Duluth. We will look deeper into the issue of racism and law enforcement on next week's show. You can follow Almanac North on our social media sites, whether you're at home or returning to work. You'll find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and visit the WDSE website for program updates, station events, and new COVID-19 programming and information. Thanks to our guests and to the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Stay healthy, everyone. We'll see you next time.